Welcome again to Boroughbriggs Beat, the official podcast of Elgin City. Our guests this episode are Bryan Easson, who's the disability officer at Elgin City, and we've also got Mike Whelan, who's the programme editor, the black and white, the programme's called, of Elgin City. So welcome, guys. How are you doing?
Not bad.
Good, thanks,
How are
Chris.
you, Chris?
It's nice to have you here. You're part of an illustrious list now of people that have been on the podcast. Although I did have someone today who I asked to come on the podcast, and I've already said she, but I won't divulge it. What she said, I'd rather shoot myself in the head, which I thought was a bit harsh, because I thought the podcast has been all right up to now, but she was adamant she's not coming on. But I'll work on that one.
It sounds as though she doesn't want to.
Yeah, I won't divulge who it is, but Vicky, your secret's safe with me. Okay. Right, as we touched on there, we've got Bryan, who's our disability officer at the club, and Mike, who's the programme editor, also, well, print and digital these days. I was going to start off, how long have you both supported the club? I'll start with you, Bryan. I mean, how long have you been an Elgin City fan?
Well, I've been born in Elgin, but before moving to Leicester, I've always kept an eye on results through the years, through the Sunday Post and Sunday Mail, right. Those good organs. And then it's actually 30 years ago today that I moved back to Elgin.
Okay.
So it's an anniversary. And I started intermittently watching them again, but it wasn't until 2011-12 season that Gnomes dragged me to Elgin one day. I thought, no, she's not going to like it. And she did, and we've been constant ever since.
Right. And Gnomes, this is Naomi. This was a colleague, but she's now your better half.
Yes, indeed.
And I say better half, not other half. Better half.
Better off, definitely better off.
So you've been Elgin City partners in crime ever since then?
Oh yes, and started going to a few away games, but over the years it's with Michael and Jenna. We've been going home and away now for probably better part of, certainly since COVID, but before COVID,
right.
We were taking most of the away games in as well.
So it's a bit of an addiction. It gets into your blood, doesn't it?
It certainly is. It's amazing how it does, because initially you think, a whole day away, but it's the camaraderie more than the football sometimes. With Elgin, that's sometimes not a bad thing.
Yeah, over the years. But this season it's camaraderie and the football. We'll come on to that later, but it's definitely the football as well, isn't it?
You're quite right there, Chris. It certainly is. It's a lot better now to from what it has been.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about yourself, Mike? What is your relationship with Elgin? Where does it stretch back to?
Well, I moved up here about 27 years ago, Chris. I didn't really follow Elgin at that time. I used to just pick a game every week, Highland League games. So I'd maybe go to the odd game at Boroughbriggs, but probably did Bucky Thistle more than Elgin.
Right, okay.
Apologies to that, folks.
No.
But then after...
Other football clubs are available.
After the first of my children were born, I stopped going to football and ended up in the dreaded Saturday afternoon Tesco rush, and just got too much for me. One particular day in 2008, I just wandered out of Tesco's. It was half-time at Elgin. They were playing Albion Rovers, and I just wandered in, didn't pay to get in because the gate was open, just wandered in and watched what I could see, and they lost 6-1 and had 3 men sent off.
Chance.
And I thought, this team needs me. And
Not this team's. This is a team for me.
It was so bad. It was good, if that makes sense.
Right.
I just remember at one point I was behind the goal at the Cooper Park end, and do you remember Darren Shalliker?
He
went through, a good player, yeah. But he was chasing a through ball that never came, and he just kept running, and he stopped at the wall, and he put his hands on the wall, and he just looked at me, and he just shook his head, and it was. So yeah, that was my first game.
All right.
Really, that's when I called myself an Elgin supporter.
God, I've got a bizarre image now of Mike just wandering about in a daze, out of Tesco, kind of a shopping.
Probably not knowing where he was.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, Saturday afternoon shopping in Tesco or watching Elgin losing 6-1. I think Elgin shades it.
No disrespect to Tesco. Other supermarkets are available to be miserable in as well. But that kind of, it's not a pretty picture a Saturday afternoon. No self-respecting football fan or should be in a supermarket on a Saturday afternoon.
Absolutely.
So, great stuff. Oh, that's a couple of good wee stories there about how you came to love Elgin City. And Bryan, we mentioned earlier your role at the club. You have an official role now. You're disability officer. Could you tell folk who maybe don't know too much about that what it actually entails?
That's right. It's part of a European initiative that was set up some years ago that a group of Scottish fans took it on and developed it over here, the Scottish Disabled Supporters Association. And each club has got one of these officers.
Yeah.
And it's basically to try to make the game accessible no matter if anybody has a disability or is nervous about coming to a game. I'm there as a conduit between the club and the supporter if they do need other assistance or they might want other help when they're getting into the ground and all that. I try to encourage people to contact me if they do have any ideas about how to improve the experience at Borough Briggs. It's not only I not only deal with home support, it's also away support.
Right, okay.
In the Hibs game earlier this year, I got contacted by a blind supporter of Hibs, Carl Macker, who wanted to come along. And he just wanted to make sure he could get a ticket and all that. So I facilitated that.
Right,
and
excellent.
I've got to know him a bit. He's absolutely incredible considering he's totally blind. He's a Hibs and Sunderland supporter and hardly misses a game of either club. He travels away. I think he's already up to game 23 for the season.
Right, between the two.
Yeah, and been as far as Plymouth.
Right.
And Ross County within 2 or 3 days, I think that was. And he's just amazing. So there is the help out there, and it is good to encourage everybody to get the love of the game and not miss out because of any disability they may have.
And you were saying there, I mean, it could be any disability, whether physical or mental or otherwise, that kind of impairs your life or impacts your life on a week-to-week basis. But football can be a big release for people in many ways, couldn't it?
It certainly is. I think a lot of people do use football and other sport and other activities for their mental health, or they're just getting out and enjoying life rather than always thinking about whatever disability they may have.
And on your travels around Scotland, have you noticed the kind of the infrastructure for fans who are disabled or visually impaired or physical impairments?
Certainly, obviously, the bigger clubs, the Premier and some of the Championship clubs, have got initiatives like loops for deaf fans.
Okay.
They may have the audio for them and description for blind fans.
Right.
And it is incredible to see the amount of fans that have got disabilities that are being captured and treated well by clubs.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of Borough Briggs, in the physical sense, the infrastructure there for wheelchair fans and other fans with mobility issues, I mean, there is a shelter and it's right behind the home dugout, so it's ideally positioned that you're going to get a great experience there, aren't you?
It is. It's one of the best because, especially since it's been rebuilt, most fans who go in there have got a very positive vibe from that. It's
all about being as inclusive as possible, isn't it?
You've got to be inclusive. You've got to try to capture everybody that wants to enjoy the game.
But it must be harder to deliver that in an old ground like Elgin compared to some of these new stadiums.
That is the problem, with some of the older grounds, as you say, Mike. It needs, you can't have the things that clubs with better facilities or more modern facilities is probably a better way of putting it.
Aye. So how long have you been doing that, Bryan? And when did you take up that role?
2013, so it's 11 years
Is
now.
it? Right, okay.
And there's regular meetings with all the DAOs from around the country, probably once every 2 months.
Okay.
And it's good to hear their experiences. And sometimes you can, even with a ground like Elgin, you can take some of the ideas that are being tried out in other clubs.
Right, okay. So you're always looking out for what other clubs are doing to see if you can, get best practice and adapt things at Elgin.
And I would say to any supporter that have got disabilities, if they want to get hold of me, they can either do it through the best thing is to contact me through the club, and I'll get back to them, because it'd be nice to build up more of a base with people that have got issues that can work off each other. Yeah.
So you'd say if anyone's out in the community that's got a disability and has got a passion for football, but have always been a bit apprehensive, maybe about going to a game live, then don't feel apprehensive, but there is support there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great stuff. Right, we'll come back to that later, Bryan, but thanks for that. Mike, we mentioned you're the programme editor. The programme this season is called Black and White, isn't it? Yep. And you also modern print, but also digital as well. When did you go digital with the programme?
Digital was during COVID.
Right.
Kieran, the secretary at the time, asked if we could go digital, which I did. And it seemed to go down pretty well. There weren't many clubs doing it at that time, so it was a good thing to do it at the time. Once COVID finished, I think some people were quite keen that we carry on with the digital programme, but I'm old school. I wanted to go back to a proper programme, and so we do.
There's still something nice about a tangible programme at a match, isn't there?
I think so. Yeah, I think it's maybe more difficult a place like Elgin where people rack up at about 5 to 3. But it may be a lot of the bigger grounds where people arrive early and they're sat there, they get in early. The programme's the way to pass the time. Yeah. Or equally, away travellers on the journey home.
Yeah. And when did you get involved as programme editor?
That was 2011.
Right.
So I'm due a testimonial, I think.
Pair of yous together, I think you're due a joint testimonial for your services.
Disabled Access Officers versus Programme Editors 11. That'd fill the stands.
And had you done anything like that before that, Mike?
I used to do history articles in the Charlton programme. I used to support Charlton before I came up here.
Right.
And I was involved in fanzines as well for a while, when fanzines were big in the 80s and 90s.
And prior to that, did Elgin City have a programme, or did you take one on and develop it? Or?
No, there was a programme. Basically what happened at the start of the season, I went in to renew my season ticket, and Kate Taylor was the secretary at the time. She was there before Kieran, if you remember Kate. And I just said to her, I said, if ever you want the odd article for the programme, I'd be happy to do it. And then I think it was the following week she came back to me and said, would you like to do the programme? Because the chap
so grown arms and legs in a week.
The chap who was doing it stepped back from that. So I think it was about a week before the first game. So I did it, and I thought, I'll get on with it. So I've been doing it ever since.
You clearly enjoy it. I mean, you've got a wee team of people that help out and give you assistance in that, but I mean, you enjoy it. I mean, what do you get from it on a personal level?
Comes back to the paper thing, really. If I just walk in the stand and there's hopefully the odd person sitting and reading it, then that feels good. Which you don't get that with a digital program, of course. There could be millions of people reading it, but to actually physically see someone reading it. I mean, there's a wee lad sits in front of me, bless him. I don't know if his mum pays him to do it, but he studies that program from front cover to back cover. Yeah, and that's good. So,
I've still got mates. I mean, I'm in my 50s, and I'm not an avid collector of programmes, never have been, but I do always like to get a programme when I'm at a game, if it's any game, neutral or otherwise. But there's a lot of avid collectors still of programmes. Do you find that? Yeah.
Yeah, there is. I know 2 or 3 people around the country, and even in England, who I speak to friends down there, still enjoy collecting programmes. That there's just something about them. I suppose it's like the vinyl equivalent to records.
Yeah.
A lot of people want vinyl. A lot of people still want programmes as memories, because, as Mike says, digital you can't really have many memories with.
It's very disposable, digital, isn't it? I suppose that's the nature of the beast. But
I mean, some of the big clubs, their programmes are more like Argos catalogues now, and they're like £5 or something.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I'm quite proud of is that it's the same price now as it was when I took it on, £2.
Right.
And
that's good for and I've
even in SPFL2, most clubs are £3 now.
Yeah.
And it's a small print run, so but it's just good if we can keep the price down.
So many do you normally get printed for a home game?
It depends. We're usually about 100.
Right.
And that will include complimentaries to certain gold card members, whoever get them. I think hospitality gets some, and some of the players get them as well. I know when Ross Draper was manager at the start of last season, and I went to see him to get the manager's interview, and he said, "I've never seen a programme." So I thought, "Oh, great," So he said, "Oh, could you arrange for the programmes to go into the dressing rooms and these players to see them?"
Yeah.
So Ross was good at that, about trying to make it more of a focal point in the club, if you like.
I suppose for the players, I mean, we can be talking about the women as well at this point, because obviously the women's club this season, their second full season, they've been kind of trailblazing in terms of producing programmes for a couple of their big games, and also a digital programme for every game now, which, they actually did that before Celtic introduced it for their women. So it's you're kind of raising the bar there in terms of producing a programme for the women as well.
Yes, although I do think there's something, I'm being sexist here, I do think there's something almost masculine about programmes, and I don't. Ideally, it'd be good if there was some woman out there who would say, "Oh, we'll do the Elgin City programme for the women's team." So it's a bit more. It needs to reflect women's football rather than just being something done by them rather than done to them.
Yeah,
if I can put it that way.
But I mean, in terms of the product as well. I mean, there's good content in it, and you've I like the one you've introduced this year with the boot room banter, which is about the players and their boots and what boots they've worn. It's just something a wee bit different, isn't it? Behind
running out of questions. There's only so many questions you can ask about boots. But I was thinking I should have actually done it on tattoos rather than boots. My favourite tat or something.
Yeah, well, that could be another one.
Yeah, that's for next year.
There's loads of players, male and female. Tattoos are quite big.
It's also helped this year. We've had this young lad come, a guy called Chris, who comes in and he does interviews in the programme, and he was a professional journalist.
Oh, right, okay.
So he knows what he's doing. So that actually,
I'll do my best.
So that has improved the programme significantly. That's a great help.
It's just trying to add a wee bit of interest in it for the fans, and I suppose it's a direct way of talking to the fans, isn't it, from the club? Yeah. It's still a good vehicle. The younger fans, do they still? I don't know if you've noticed. I remember getting my programme signed by players when I was younger. Do fans still do that?
I haven't really noticed, but I'm sure there's a few of them do, because there's so many come down at the end of the game and high five the players as they go off. I'm sure that they'll then go round to the gate, players' entrance, and wait for them to come out.
I was thinking on some of the in some of the programmes you see where there's a photograph of a player, they'll actually have a white square, a space for an autograph. So I was wondering about that.
I think,
but then if the players are going to get plagued with, Dejan would probably have hundreds of kids following him around asking if he'd probably get a bit.
Yeah, but I think
Dejan
would love that.
He probably would actually. Yeah,
but I think all the players would love that, because it's. I mean, at their level, part-time level, I mean, they're still professionals, and for wee kids to look up to them. Same with the women. They're getting a following amongst young girls as well. I think at their level that'd be quite a buzz. I think you should do that. I go for it, and you can get players to. You could put a little bit of white space in the chairman's notes, so Alan could sign, and You know, do you think many people would want the chairman's signature? You might get a lot of blank cheques being shoved underneath it. Eh?
That is possible.
Excellent. Right, well, thanks, mate. We'll maybe come back to talk about the programme later. I was going to ask you as well, we touched on how you came to be passionate Elgin supporters. And I noticed you said there, Mike, that you talked about renewing your season tickets. So obviously your days of nicking in the gate at half time, they've gone. I mean,
yes, yeah. Well, actually, I get a freebie now because I do the programme. So
you do a lot of work for the club, so that's fine. That's fair dues. Your favourite Elgin City memory? Or do you have one, or do you have multiple?
Well, mine. I was thinking about this earlier today when you gave us a sneak preview of what you were thinking of asking. Was the Scottish Challenge Cup 19 to 20 season, the COVID season.
Right.
The Challenge Cup, not as renowned as a Scottish Cup, which obviously a couple of years ago we got to the 5th round.
Yeah.
But that year we beat some good teams and they were all away, and we got to the quarter-final only to lose 3-2 to Wraith on a Dreich Friday night.
Right. Was that in Elgin?
That was at Wraith. Yeah,
I was going to say in Wraith.
Yeah, right. They weren't dancing.
That goes back to the dancing in the streets of Wraith, doesn't it? But all right, a Dreich Friday night in Kirkcaldy. So that's interesting.
And one of my favourite chants was heard that day when Tony Dingwall was warming up in front of us. The fans were chanting, "You're just a rubbish Russell Dingwall."
Was that but he was playing with Wraith at that time?
Yeah, he was playing with Wraith, and
he since went on to feature for Elgin.
Twice.
Aye, yeah.
Before being a Brora superstar.
All right, cool. So that's when you're at.
That's
an interesting memory. That.
Of course, being the COVID season as well, that was our best ever finish in the league. Finished 3rd, but of course it was a curtailed season.
Of course.
But we narrowly missed out on the play. Well, we got to the playoffs, but
they were shells, weren't they?
Well, we got beaten by Edinburgh. Edinburgh went up that year, and we just there again narrowly. I think if it had been a full season, it could have been our year then.
Okay. And Mike, do you have a specific memory or a collection of memories from over the years?
That's a tough one, actually. Probably, thinking about it, probably that game at the end of last season when Ross Draper scored the goal that kept us up against Dumbarton.
Yes.
That was...
I suppose, and that's, I mean, staying up was a biggie because, I mean, if Elgin had have gone back down to the High League, that would not have been easy to come back from that, would it? Well,
you look at the clubs that have gone out, and Brechin have been the only ones that have got near making a sustained challenge, and even not, they've not managed it.
Yeah. And then the Lowland League's become a bit of a graveyard for ex-league clubs.
Exactly.
Cowdenbeath, Stirling, Berwick Rangers, Albion Rovers.
They're nowhere near the top.
No.
A lot of them aren't even anywhere near the top. They're down halfway in the Lowland League, so it is difficult to come back up after going down. It's not easy, and I couldn't see Elgin doing it, to be honest, if
not in the shape they were in then. I mean, hopefully, touchwood, those days are kind of in the rear view mirror now, but okay, good stuff. Right, well, we'll leave the league to one side for now, because you mentioned 3rd place being the best ever finish in the club's history in not top flight senior football, but at the moment Elgin's sitting 2nd. But I've got to talk about the cup tie on Saturday. Unfortunately, I missed it. I was on holiday, but you guys were both there. I've seen the videos, I've seen the penalty shootout. I mean, it was completely bonkers, wasn't it? It was just bizarre, but
that's
totally
a fair
exciting.
Description. Yes, yeah. It was quite slow. I thought the game started quite slowly, actually. Usually it's kind of high energy from the start, but both teams seemed quite, a bit...
tentative.
Yeah, that's the word, tentative. And Ross Draper, of course, went off injured after about 2-3 minutes, was it? Just pulled up with an injury. But the game, the pace slowly picked up. Then he went into extra time, and then it was just kind of the chance upon chance at both end.
Yeah, it just seemed to open up at that point.
Yep.
I think,
but again, Elgin, I mean, this season, the one thing I've noticed, they seem to have staying power, resilience. I mean, trailing 1-0, 2 minutes to go in a cup tie, Elgin City of old probably wouldn't have taken that to extra time, but popped up with a goal. And, you know, Jack Murray, centre-half, joint top scorer.
It's their fitness, Chris. I mean, apart from anything else, the fitness is just so much better than the last season or so.
Yeah, definitely.
And with Jacko, you know that he's always going to be a goal threat, but they just don't, like you say, they don't give up now. They keep going, and they got the success. Though it was pretty nerve-wracking with the 24 penalties.
Was that the total number? I was trying to count them and I lost count at one point, but in the video, 24.
Yeah, they went round all
Because
11.
they went through the entire team and then back to Russell
Back
again.
to Russell, aye. Yeah, aye, because I did wonder initially, I was looking at the video and I thought, Russell's all the team one, what's going on here? But then I realised they'd gone through everybody and it was back to Russell, and he obviously scored it after missing the one previously. But and obviously, well, Aidan was the man of the moment, the star, and it's kind of gone a bit global and viral, you know, on TV and social media. But he saved a penalty in extra time, and then he saved 5 in the shootout. I mean, what would you say about his performance on Saturday?
First of all, the first one of those penalties was the one where Clyde scored. He actually saved it, but the backspin took the ball over the line. So it was almost another save you could have added to that. But it got to the stage where you just expected him to save every kick, and they weren't. It's not like they were bad kicks. I mean, he said it in an interview that he just had a guess about which way and went his way. But I think a couple of the saves, he'd gone the wrong way, but he managed to stop them with his feet. And you can see he's looking back. Superb goalkeeper. Yeah. And apart from the penalties, he made some really important saves with his hands and his feet during the game, especially in that. There was one save in extra time that was really important.
Yeah. If he could, he'd bottle that performance, I think, because a lot of people online have been going, oh, there weren't that good penalties, but it doesn't matter if they were or weren't. You still got to save them.
Yeah.
If you go the wrong way, they go in, even if they're trickling. But he guessed right on most of them, saved them, and the rest is history.
Yeah. He's been a revelation since he came in, because, I mean, that was a kind of crucial period for the club where they had Ollie out injured, young backup Cole on the bench, and then Tom went out injured. That could have been a real blow for them, but they haven't really missed the absence of Tom because of the form that Aidan has shown. And I mean, at 19 and on loan from Kilmarnock, I mean, I was speaking to Jack the other night for the programme on Saturday, and he was saying he's got everything to have a really big future in the game. So, I mean, what would you say about his form generally since he came in?
I think initially he was pretty nervous, but of course it was his first, though he played in West of Scotland League last year for Auchinleck. This is a big step up, and I think initially he possibly was a bit shaky. One or two of the goals that he did let in, I think he'll look back and was disappointed with, but he's learnt from that, and instead of letting his head go down, he's worked on it, and now his form is really taking off. And I think if he continues like that, he will have a big future in the game. Reminds me a bit of Zach when Zander was here. He took the job by the scruff of the neck and really worked on his game. I think Aidan's doing the same, and I'm sure in a few years' time he will, whether it be with Kilmarnock or somebody else, he will be a number one keeper somewhere.
Yeah.
You see his confidence with every game is improving and strengthening.
Yeah.
So, and that performance, that can only do him good.
He's good with his feet as well, in
Yes.
terms of passing out, but also saving with his feet. I've noticed him, you know, he really spreads himself well and has made some crucial saves just by sticking out a toe or sticking out a foot.
Yeah, I mean, you know, when I was a lad, we always told never use your feet, and you always thought the keeper that did wasn't a good keeper. But the best keepers now, they're good with their feet, not just in stopping the ball, but obviously their distribution and playing out from the back.
Yeah.
So, he's got everything, I think.
Yeah, long may that continue. Well, that may continue because we've got until January, obviously, and hopefully Tom will be back, ready to go by then. But no, fair play. Right, that was the cup, and well, we won't go into the draw. Kelty Hearts again. No disrespect to Kelty Hearts, but this is the third time we'll face them in a cup competition this season, so we're not getting much variety in terms of the draw, are we?
Disappointing, I felt. A draw's a draw, I know,
home
but,
draw,
at least it's home draw. But it would have been nice to get somebody else. But we just play who's in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been nice to have somebody different.
It's definitely winnable at home, though, because we beat them in the Premier Sports Cup at home on penalties, lost in the Challenge Cup down in Fife. But
I think, there's no reason why we can't win, and especially with the way they're playing at the moment. Mm-hmm. The confidence through the team, I think, is getting better each game.
Yeah. I mean, it's flowing through the team, isn't it? And that's what I was going to come on to next, the league form. I mean, it's a club record, 10 games unbeaten, in the SPFL. It's an unbeaten start to the season, sitting in second, 5 wins, 5 draws. What would you say about the form so far? I mean, it's almost like people have been waiting for that first defeat to come, and it hasn't come yet. And, let's just hope they can keep churning out the games, picking up points here, there and everywhere.
Well, I still think that there is a lot more to come from the team, because I don't think, and I think Alan and Steph will probably say the same, that they're not playing 100%, anywhere near 100%, but the determination to get a result is there. And I think that's what's bringing them through on a lot of matches. Whereas, like we say before, we'd have lost a lot of those games, but now it doesn't seem to bother them that they've gone 1-0 down, which they haven't done a lot this season. That is the other good. A lot of the ones we've drawn, we've actually taken the lead.
Yeah.
You've got to play for the 90 minutes.
Yeah. Would you say arguably the two biggest results was the 0-0 at Clyde when they played the whole game with 10 men, and the 1-0 win through at Peterhead, which was an entirely different kind of game. They had to kind of dig in and really put in a solid shift that day.
Two very important results. I mean, as soon as Jake was sent off, wrongly in my opinion, but I don't count. I think that every Elgin fan that was there thought we're going to lose, even though Clyde hadn't been playing well, but they just dug in and to a man brought another 10-15% to their game. And Clyde at the end didn't really trouble us all that much. There again, Aidan, I think, had a couple of good saves, but it wasn't backs to the wall by any means. And the Peterhead game was, well, we're not used to winning at Peterhead.
I was going to say, Elgin got a great record.
No,
Peterhead.
Dan Moore was the last one that scored the winner.
So without being negative, a lot of people probably were thinking privately that this might be the one where the unbeaten run goes, but it was far from it. It just
once again, we dig in. We believe in ourselves these days, and that obviously comes through the entire club.
And it's built on a really good defence. Defensively, we've got good defenders in the team, and you can't build a decent team unless while you're conceding goals. Yeah, and they're not conceding.
No, and it helps as well if one of your defenders is top scorer, because I mean there is goals, and Jack Murray, I mean he scored 26 as part of a title winning team for Bucky last season. I mean he is a solid defender, but he's such a threat as well in another box, isn't he?
Even if he scores half as many as that for us this season, that's going to be an incredible amount. And he looks as though he could well do that, scoring the 5 already.
Yeah. He kind of admitted to me that he almost enjoys scoring goals more than he does keeping clean sheets, but he said to keep that quiet. But
you just have.
It's maybe a shocking admission for a defender, but I mean, I like the fact that he's such a threat, and whether it's he's got a good left peg, he can hit a free kick, he can volley, but he's also, I mean, his sheer size, he's a threat.
And he's so comfortable bringing the ball out of defence as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not just get rid of this and hoof it.
Yeah. Would you say, I mean, obviously he came from the Highland League, so did Ryan Sargent. That kind of has bucked a trend over the last decade for Elgin of taking, you know, it's just two players, but two big players from the Highland League. Elgin hasn't really been able to do that over the last period of time, have they?
It shows the skill is there. The players are in the Highland League. You've just got to know your market. And look at Alan and Steph do. They know the players that are out there that can do a job for the club, and have more or less had a 100% record in the transfers so far.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You wonder how Jack could spend, no disrespect to Bucky, but you wonder how he could spend 5 years there without somebody thinking he was worth a chance at a higher level.
Yeah, I know he was great there. I mean, he obviously he talks about in the programme about his 12 years he spent at Ross County, and disappointed to be released, after a loan spell at Bucky. But as you say, he spent 3 or 4 at least years through at Bucky, and someone would take a chance on him. But I mean, Elgin took that chance, and it's certainly paying dividends at the moment.
Absolutely.
For him and Elgin. What would you say about the 10-game unbeaten run yourself, Mike? I mean, is that beyond fans' wildest expectations this season to be still unbeaten as we go into November?
Yes, but particularly it's from the start of the season. Sometimes, to get a 10-match spell any time, but to actually do it from the start of the season, and that was after the the League Cup games that were pretty challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But to actually start from that foundation and start new season 10 games unbeaten. Well, it's we're the only club in Scotland.
We're one of the few now that's still unbeaten. Well, Aberdeen and Celtic in the top five.
But Livingston.
Yeah,
I think there's 4.
But I mean, I think it's a great achievement. And even the opening day win against East Fife, the way they've taken off after that shows you how big a win and a performance that was as well.
But no, it was the cup. But there again, East Fife going out to Banks of D on Saturday. Wouldn't have expected that.
No.
So.
No, it's been a great start to the season, so long may it continue. We're just going to digress slightly. We kind of touched on it earlier. You touched on your Leicester. Well, you're born in Elgin, but you spent a lot of your early years in Leicester.
That's correct, yes.
We can't not. I mean, you class yourself as a Leicester City fan as well.
Definitely.
Yeah? I mean, Claudio Ranieri, the Premiership title. I mean, how good a season was that? I mean, that was
a terrific season, obviously, but on the back of what had happened for the 15 or 16 years before that, the Premiership win. I mean, when Martin O'Neill left for Celtic in 2000, it seemed to go downhill rapidly. We went into administration in 2002. The owner that took us on a couple of years later, we ended up in League One for the first time in the club's history, the third tier of English football. The Thai consortium came in, had a 5-year plan, and within 3 years of that, we won the Premiership. It was Roy the Rovers stuff.
It was, wasn't it?
Because no die-hard Leicester fan would have ever thought we were going to do that. I certainly didn't. Even as the season progressed, I thought it's going to blow up any second.
Yeah, I think that season, I mean, I like speaking as a Scottish person looking down on England and not seeing that much of the football, you became a Leicester City fan, and you almost thought, well, the bubble's got to burst this week. I mean, they're away at Arsenal, they're away at Liverpool, Man City, the bubble's got to burst, and it never did it?
Yeah, the point of the season that I started to believe was when Spurs fans were going on about we're coming for you, because they had narrowed the gap, and in the end they finished third in a 2-horse race. They couldn't even finish second, so that put the gold star on it, really, because I think it was built there again on a different level, obviously. But I think Elgin this year has got a good team spirit. They all seem to be fighting for each other. Certainly Leicester that season, they just got the squad that would just run through brick walls for each other. And it was incredible to see them getting over the line so easily, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we lost 3 all season.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
It was never to be done again, but they can't take
and I know every team in the English Premiership has money because that is a money league, but Leicester didn't have money in the level of Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, Spurs.
I think it was a perfect storm because I think all the big hitters, for one reason or another, had really atrocious seasons. I mean, I know Arsenal finished second, but they didn't have a decent season, and Man City were well off the pace. Spurs, as I say, blew up towards the end. Chelsea weren't all that close. So, but we just seemed to go through any team we met. We just roll the sleeves up and get on with it. The one thing I don't like, I call them the 2016 Leicester fans who expect that sort of thing every year. You've got to be realistic. You've got to know where your club is. Yeah,
because you've been down and then back up since then. And,
that's it. And for me, what I'd like to see Leicester as is a mid-table Premiership side, constant, maybe going for Europe once or twice in 10 years, maybe winning a league or a FA Cup. But certainly we're not going to win the league again.
No, but certainly a memory. It's locked away, it's there. And it's a
bit like Blackburn in 95.
I suppose,
they've struggled for quite a few years now, but you can never take that away from fans that they saw the team lift the trophy.
And you mentioned earlier, Mike, you watched Charlton when you were younger. Is that your roots? Where are you from originally?
Yes, I'm from North Kent and just over in South London. That's where Charlton are. So my dad used to watch them in his youth, and that's who I followed. Yeah,
right. And they've had some good Premiership class teams. I mean, Alan Curbishley, he kept him in the Premier League for donkey's years, didn't he? Some good teams, Charlton.
Yeah, there's a good side then, but struggling a bit at the moment, down in third tier. But we'll be back.
Yeah. And obviously a connection to Charlton with Dylan Gavin, spent 4 years at Charlton.
Yes.
2 as a scholar, 2 as a full-time pro. So, I mean, he's obviously been schooled in the right way, and he's kind of lost his way a wee bit and now seems to be finding it again with Elgin City. So
yeah, the interesting thing, it's kind of, I think it's in, you've got, I followed Charlton. I also followed Cray Wanderers when Charlton weren't playing.
Okay.
They're a Isthmian League team.
Right. Deschamps played for them, didn't he?
Exactly, played for them. So, but in this day and age, you've now got players who played for Cray Wanderers and for Charlton turning up in Elgin. And last season we had the lad Freddie from Bradford City on loan. And this is a whole new game. You know, we just never had that at Elgin, have we, before, really?
Yeah. There's a bit of a cosmopolitan look to Elgin this season, you know, from where they're getting players. Albeit the bulk of the squad coming from Inverness, Murray and Aberdeen neck of the woods, but it's good to see.
The one that I cannot get my head around is Gervo coming from Stranraer. Not that he's bad, I think he's an excellent player, but obviously us going to see all the away games, he played in every game against Elgin last year. And I cannot remember him at all. You'd think with his class that he's shown so far for us that he'd have stood out. But
yeah, he has been a solid performer, and he's got goals in him as well.
He has.
From right wing back.
But I cannot remember him at all for Stranraer. He must have played.
Maybe you were just looking at the games through black and white spectacles, so Bryan.
That's possible.
You weren't
but you do get those players that just get on and do their job, and they're vital, but you hardly notice them sometimes. Yeah. He's only missed a couple of games this season as well, hasn't he?
He's been a really consistent performer. One of the best. I mean, there's been no failures really so far this season for Elgin, but I mean, he's one of the real success stories. Just before we bring this to an end, I just wanted to touch on basically the transformation in Elgin, and it's easy to get carried away, and obviously we've got to temper it with and Alan's and Stefan have been keen to try and dial things back, and he said a couple of weeks ago that his first priority was to get as far away from the relegation playoff zone and kind of put that to bed, and then wherever it takes them. But I mean, they've really, in a short space of time, they've raised the expectation level from staying in that league to a totally different level now, and people are, all the fans seem to be talking about playoffs, at the right end of the table. So what do you think about the transformation of the club's fortunes in that short space of time with Alan and Steph coming in?
It is good to see, because we have been very rocky for the last 3 or 4 seasons, knowing why sometimes with a change of manager, all that. But it seems to have, we've got a new stability, and I think it's right to just have small targets, going every 6 games or whatever, and saying, right, let's see where we are there. It was similar to the Leicester thing. Going back to Leicester, Claudio said that his first target was 40 points to avoid relegation, and we'll see what we get, how far we can get on from that. And it's the same with Alan and Steph. They're going, the first thing we've got to do is make sure we're nowhere near the bottom. We're aiming for that target, and then let's see where we can go after we get to that. Yeah. And it seems to be working. There seems to be a whole new feel about the club from top to bottom, and I can see that can only improve. It won't go backwards. I think we're on an upwards trajectory. And
as I don't know who said earlier, but I mean, really, 10 games unbeaten, but you didn't feel Elgin have hit top form in any of those 10 games. There's still, as Alan and everybody else says, there is more to come. If that team was to click any time, it's a cliche, but they could give a hiding to someone.
Well, obviously, the big thing is that it's either midfield or defenders have scored the bulk of the goals so far. So if the forwards can click into gear and start scoring their fair share, then that can only improve the team. And
did you feel there's been a wee sense of that? Because Ollie and Dylan both scored in the 3-1 win at Spartans. Obviously didn't score in the cup game, but do you feel, maybe that hitting form isn't far away for one of the strikers at least to go on a run? That
could be the turning of the corner. I think that once they've scored a couple in quick succession, we've got Stranraer this Saturday. It's not going to be easy. None of the games are easy, but we're at home. With the form we've shown, we can attack them. If we can get the forwards scoring, then I think after that they'll go on a wee bit of a run. And that can only help us.
I suppose, and just a note of caution, they can't afford to take Stranraer lightly at the weekend, because I don't know if you saw their cup tie at 3 Rovers. They came from 2-0 down to win that, and one of their boys scored an absolute banger of a goal. So I mean, they've got quality, just haven't quite hit form yet in the league.
They have, yeah. I mean, since the new manager came in, they've 3 games. I think they've won 2 and drawn 1.
Yeah.
So he's turned things around pretty quickly there.
Yeah,
but as you say, I mean, it's an old cliche about there being no easy games in the division, but the difference between the top and bottom teams is so small. I mean, Edinburgh City came in and the energy they showed, and they're one of the teams down near the bottom.
Yeah.
But they were strong, and it's difficult to.
I think with Edinburgh, at the moment, they're very lucky with having Connor Young. He seems to have hit a rich vein of form, and he's their top scorer. I think take him, if he was to come out of the team, they may struggle. that's why a goal scorer is important if
Yeah.
you can get one, and that's why they're rarer than hen's teeth.
Hen's teeth, that's his expression, aye. Yeah. I've never actually had a hen's teeth, but so that must mean they are quite rare because I've never had one in my possession. But anyway, well, it's been great. Thanks for the chat. It's 10 games unbeaten. We're 2 points off the top, so it's really positive as we go into November. Can you believe that? November and we're still unbeaten in the league.
What's it like to lose a game, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, long may that continue. Long may it continue. But right, that brings us to the end of this episode of Borough Street. So I'm just going to say thank you to Bryan, thank you to Mike for your company and your chat. It's been thoroughly pleasant. 50 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks for listening and tune in again next time.